what we do here is go back.
Tap into proprietary insights to stay ahead of trends with SurveyMonkey's new industry tracker product in this special BattleFin webinar featuring ensemble data provider SurveyMonkey. You've heard of the brand, but did you know that SurveyMonkey is able to easily generate actionable consumer insights through their 17 million users across over 350,000 organizations? Rather than relying on traditional standardized surveys, SurveyMonkey clients can tailor specific questions around their investing needs. SurveyMonkey is able to provide context around trends and inflections that can be seen in quantitative datasets and the market, increasing the reliability and clarity of alpha. For this webinar, BattleFin and SurveyMonkey will walk you through the importance of tracking consumer perceptions and how you can leverage them to stay ahead of trends and drive better decisions. We'll also be taking a special look at SurveyMonkey's new industry tracker solution. Joining us today is Divya Shroff, Senior Product Marketing Manager for SurveyMonkey Market Research Solutions, and David Paliso, Head of Financial Services for SurveyMonkey Market Research Solutions. And now, please welcome your moderator, BattleFin founder and CEO, Tim Harrington.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. We're back in BattleFin's virtual studios. We have an awesome presentation today and some Q&A with SurveyMonkey. We're excited to have Dave and Divya. One of the things we always look for from our community is things that can really add a ton of value. And I think what we're going to talk about today is really going to do that. One of the challenges of COVID was trying to understand what was going to be happening, what people are going to be looking at as we exit COVID. So how do we do that? We're going to get going. Divya and David, please give us your backgrounds and let's get started.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's really great to be here today, and thank you everyone for joining us. As Tim mentioned, my name is Divya Shroff, and today we are going to talk to you about how proprietary consumer insights can help power true alpha for you using the latest and greatest solution from SurveyMonkey, our industry tracker. So we'll start today with introducing ourselves. I'll introduce myself and then David. And then give you a little bit of a preview of our industry tracker solution, how you can leverage it as a high quality and reliable alternative data source, and share an example of the types of insights that you can expect to get from this solution. So as I mentioned, I'm Divya Shroff. I'm a senior product marketing manager at SurveyMonkey for our market research solutions. And as a product marketer, I help to identify customer needs, market new product launches, and develop SurveyMonkey's portfolio of products. Prior to this, I've spent close to 10 years in the market research industry on the consumer insights team at Constellation Brands, conducting research for their new product development, as well as like advertising segmentation, brand tracking for their entire portfolio of beer, wine, and spirits brands. And before that, I ran innovation research for brands like Lay's, Doritos, and Mountain Dew at Nielsen Bases. And today we also have David joining us, and he leads the financial services sales for market research at SurveyMonkey. Dave, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Divya. Yeah, as you mentioned, my name is Dave Palisso, and I oversee our financial services sales efforts here at SurveyMonkey as it relates to our market research solution. And my background's always been in the alternative data industry, engaging with and partnering with some of the largest logos within the investment community. I started my career at Bloomberg, working on the brokerage side of the business there. And most recently, I was working with GFK with their point of sale data in the consumer tech and consumer durable space. Came on board here at SurveyMonkey just over 2 years ago. And main reason really just recognizing the power and the uniqueness of this platform and how that could be leveraged effectively for the investment community. So hopefully you get a sense of what that looks like here today.
Great. Well, thanks for those backgrounds. And once again, in the audience, one thing we like to do is figure out where you guys are kind of zooming in from. So if you can put in the chat, town, city, state, country, let us know where you are so we can keep this as interactive as possible. Once again, if you have any questions throughout this, use the chat, use the Q&A function. We'll be able to get back to you as fast as possible. And let's set the stage a little first. I think, to me, I was very familiar with the SurveyMonkey mass market offering, but as we've gotten to talk and go back and forth, I've learned so much more about the potential for the financial services space, not only hedge funds, but PE firms, VCs. So, David, talk us through a little bit more about what you guys are doing in the financial services space.
Yeah, Tim, you're exactly right. A lot of people recognize the SurveyMonkey brand. We've been around for over 20 years. And the thing I try to get across to the investment community when we have initial conversations is that we've really moved up market over the last 3 or 4 years and built a solution specifically for the enterprise. So right now, as you can see, we've got roughly 20 million users across 350,000 organizations worldwide, used by pretty much every Fortune 500 company out there. And to your point, some of the largest hedge funds, asset managers, private equity, VC firms in the world. And those firms are really using us in varying capacities across employee engagement, customer engagement, or for market research purposes. So anytime you need to step outside of your network of contacts and leverage our global panel of 144 million consumers and B2B contacts. And so what that means for the investment community is that you have the ability to generate actionable forward-looking data that's going to help guide your investment decisions. So if we flip over to the next slide here, I mentioned that global panel. We've got a global panel of 144 million consumers. These are consumers that are spread across 130 plus countries worldwide. These are people that opt into our panel. They're profiled in some basic demographic information like their age, gender, household income, country of domicile, obviously. And then over time, as they fill out their profile, we're going to get down into more specifics like their job function, their household makeup, how many pets do they own, how many children do they have, what kind of car do they drive, what kind of smartphone do they use. So point is very detailed, very specific, and obviously highly actionable for any investor trying to get up to speed on a particular market. And because this panel is fully embedded into our core interface, investors can quickly target on an audience that's most relevant for their research purposes, shoot out a survey, and within minutes, those responses are going to be coming back into your account and really playing to that speed and that agility that is really so critical for investors today. Quality is obviously paramount to any study, really particularly any study where you're generating time series data. These trackers, and we're going to talk a lot about trackers and cadence of surveys. When it comes to these trackers, we ensure data is consistent wave over wave. So consistent sources, consistent targeting, consistent fielding specifications, and all of that is in an effort to make sure you're getting the highest quality data out there. I mentioned that movement up market. As part of that movement up market, we've rolled out our professional services team and a team of market research experts. So these survey engineers and research methodologists, essentially those in-house experts that are going to ensure greater efficiency and effectiveness of our tool, and most importantly, give the investors that we work with a lot more confidence in the data that they're generating on our platform. One of the things we found is obviously we're working with a lot of sophisticated investors, and they know what data points they want to get to, but they don't always know how to get to those data points from a survey design or survey creation standpoint. And so for the first time ever, we're bundling in those experts to our engagement model, but most importantly, still giving our customers and the investors we work with the speed and the agility that is really so core to our value proposition.
Yeah, Ed, it might be helpful as well to touch on, how does SurveyMonkey differ from, the other categories? We have 43 categories on our BattleFin Ensemble data platform, 2,000 data sets. And if I'm a fundamental analyst in the audience, what's going to make me kind of lean in and say, hey, I need a demo of this product. This is something that's going to give me, insight into maybe a position I have already on or something I'm looking to put on. So I guess back to you, David. How does this differ from kind of what's out there?
Yeah, good question, Tim. And really, feedback data and consumer and B2B insights, like those insights investors are able to generate on our platform. Really, we view it as a critical part of the alternative data ecosystem. So no secret that the investors we're working with are using a wide range of different alternative data sources. So transactional data, credit card data, point of sale data are some of the big ones, geolocation data, app download data, web scraping data. All those behavioral and transactional data sets are great and fantastic for telling you what has happened. Where survey data can be incremental in that investment process is really giving you buyer perspective about why certain shifts are happening in the market, and most importantly, do so on a forward-looking basis. The reason SurveyMonkey is so powerful is the proprietary nature of the data that's generated on our platform. So we're not in the business of syndicating survey data and proliferating it out to hundreds of different investors. Everything that you do on our platform is tailored to your specific needs and proprietary to your firm, and really kind of eliminating that whole notion of alpha decay, which I know is so central to how a lot of investors think about usage of data. That data becomes incrementally more valuable when you start embedding it into that investment process on a time series or on a longitudinal type basis. And the reason being is there's a perspective or forward-looking aspect that's inherent in feedback data. And the need for forward-looking data is arguably more critical today than it's ever been. Consumer buying intentions and future behavior is really changing by the day with the dynamics going on with COVID, Tim, as you kind of alluded to earlier. So investors that we work with recognize that they need to understand what's happening next. And a great way to do that is with our industry tracker that we just recently rolled out. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Divya to dive a little bit deeper into our capabilities there.
Thanks, David. And that's, everything that David just said is exactly why we created our industry tracker solution, to be able to give you that forward-looking view into what's next. What are some opportunities that could work to your advantage and why these shifts are happening, right? So, for example, let's say you're running a tracker to monitor different streaming services. either because you've got investments in that space or you're tracking it for future investments. Some of the things that tracker might include are, adoption, brand perceptions, customer opinions of different streaming services. In that case, such a tracker may have been able to show you that customer adoption of Netflix has actually slowed down. And that is something that might help you anticipate that, in their next earnings call, they might announce a slowdown in subscriber growth, which, obviously could impact the price. And really similar to this example, an industry tracker can be used to monitor sentiment as well as usage of a category or of a product. Help you also look at any sort of shifts in the competitive landscape, look out for threats and opportunities, as well as monitor key metrics for your investments, brand, or sector, right? And really based on what your specific needs are, we can deliver competitive intelligence and market share analysis, as well as brand performance tracking, attribute tracking, brand conversion funnels, among a lot of other insights. So it's extremely custom to what your needs are, and we're happy to work with you to address them.
Great. And is that, just to interject, is that a little bit what David had mentioned? Because, as I would think about it, how do I look at the Netflix example and say, what questions do I really need to ask to get to that answer? And, I might want to know, okay, are you a Netflix subscriber? Yes. Do you also have Hulu or one of the other ones? Yes or no? And is that what the experts kind of help set up with that, constant outreach? Is it coming up with the questions and how to pull the answer out in a concise way? Is that kind of how the expert side of it works?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Our expert services, our expert researchers will work with you to understand exactly what you're trying to track. And then we'll work with you to design a survey, program it, and actually push it live. So, every week or every month, depending on how often you want to be tracking some of this data, we work with you to make sure that that we're actually able to get you set up based on your needs. And that way, every week or every month, you can see fresh data coming in from consumers on, Netflix, Hulu, or any other streaming services you might want to track. I know it probably sounds a little more conceptual right now, but if you're open to it, Tim, I'd love to show an example of, what our product looks like and what some of the features are.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Let's take a look then.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this demo. I'll be showcasing the SurveyMonkey Industry Tracker, part of our suite of market knowledge solutions. This solution equips investment teams with agile, proprietary data to quickly identify key trends in target sectors and make informed investment decisions. Let's say you're monitoring consumer behavior and purchase intent among home meal delivery apps. Specifically, you're deciding whether to open or close a position in Fresh Grain, the US and Japanese market leader for healthy meal delivery service. You've had two ongoing industry trackers, a monthly tracker for the US market and a quarterly tracker for Japan. You've worked with SurveyMonkey market research experts to design a study for each country that covers all the top and emerging players in the industry, as well as key metrics, including awareness, purchase intent, usage, and retention, as well as the demographics you're targeting. Once the meal delivery tracker is underway, you'll spend most of your time within our analysis and dashboarding experience. The analysis experience helps you quickly pull out meaningful trends and key metrics, and it gives you the flexibility to dig deeper when you need to. First, choose the specific tracker and target audiences you'd like to take a look at, along with how you'd like to roll the data up. The US tracker runs monthly, but you can view it in larger chunks, quarterly, biannually, yearly. Let's say you decided to track aided awareness of the top brands. You can see how awareness of Fresh Green is changing over time and how that compares to key competitors in the market. You can also change to other visualizations that work for the data set. Choosing the data table lets you see month-by-month data for the life of the tracker, along with month-over-month and year-over-year change. As you compare past data against your most current period, we'll also stat test the difference to let you know if it's a meaningful, statistically significant change. You'll have easy access to trended data for any survey metric you care about. For the Healthy Meal Delivery Service, metrics such as spending habits, eating habits, purchase intent, and recent usage will help you understand where your tracked companies and the industry overall are headed. You can use these trends to help inform your strategy. Your real goal is to figure out what changed and why. That can be time consuming. Our industry tracking product will use AI to look through all the cuts for you to pull out interesting changes. As you can see here, aided awareness increased significantly 4% in the past month for Fresh Green. And the biggest lift was with 18 to 29-year-old women. Our AI insights can pick out quick facts or show you the right place to start digging. We'll show you these insights alongside every question, and we'll refresh them with every new wave of data. And of course, they also have access to all of your response data should you need to download to Excel, CSV, or SPSS. Let's say you want to curate and share a set of key industry metrics with your team, and you want that data to automatically update with each new wave. With a few clicks, you can add any chart to a custom dashboard. See and manage all your dashboards in one place. Share a password-protected dashboard in a couple clicks. Casual users at your company don't need a SurveyMonkey account to view the data. Each dashboard gives you all the tools you need to customize. You can control the tile size, drag and drop, add text tiles, and add new tiles using data from any tracker you have in the project. All data will be automatically updated after each tracker wave. There are going to be times when you need the flexibility to go deeper. By editing any of your dashboard charts, you can use our Explore view to create a custom chart using any data in your survey with your choice of visualization. SurveyMonkey Industry Tracker enables you and your team to get proprietary industry insights fast. Please contact us to see how we can help you get more out of your industry tracking efforts.
Great. And just a reminder here for the audience, if you'd like to book a meeting with SurveyMonkey, we'll put it up on the screen right now. You can select a meeting for this week or even for next week. But that will be great. And, I guess back to you, Divya, as a recovering telco tech and media analyst and portfolio manager myself, looking at changes in growth rates, both positive and negative, was always, extremely important. So I get from that perspective, this seems like an extremely helpful product. I also like the shared dashboard option, because a lot of times I could pick something up and getting someone else to understand it was much easier with a quick visualization or a share than trying to explain it. So I see the value in those. But if you could, take us through some more use cases. I think that's where the audience really starts to grasp how important this product can be.
So here's another example that I wanted to share with you that I think would be particularly interesting for our audience today. So we've actually been running a tracker currently to monitor the retail investment industry. Specifically, we focused on a few brands like E-Trade, Robinhood, Charles Schwab, Morgan Stanley, Coinbase, Wealthfront, TD Ameritrade, and Public.com. And we're tracking these brands among US retail investors. The data that I'm going to show you today is from our first 4 waves of this tracking study, which ran from the end of Feb to the end of March, but it has been running continuously. So, I'm happy to share an updated version of this data that's more current with anyone who's interested. Just feel free to reach out. So just as an example of what some of the visuals, what sort of information the visuals from your tracker might include, right? So in this case, it was used to look at economic sentiment. And what we saw here from waves 1 through 4, which was, again, end of Feb to the end of March, we actually saw an improvement in economic sentiment among retail investors. You can see the green line on this chart. It went from 43% to 48%, describe the current state of the economy as excellent or good. But this is really a classic example of the kind of longitudinal trend data that you can see in any tracker study. And then, it's not just specific to the one brand or just industry level questions. You can compare within as well based on what you've decided to include. So in this case, I mentioned we looked at a number of different investment companies and apps here. So when we asked retail investors which of these they had heard of, as you can see here, E-Trade and Charles Schwab had the strongest recognition or aided awareness, with both being in the late 50s, early 60s level, while companies like Wealthfront and Public.com have the lowest recognition of this set of companies. Ideally, we'd want to use something like aided awareness or recognition to monitor any new competitors or threats in an industry, and also as a good starting point for what a funnel might look like for each of these brands. So starting with, how many people are aware of it, but how many people are considering switching to it or are actually using one of these apps. Awareness is just a great starting point to measure things like that.
And one quick question. So wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, are those timing? So are those,
Yes.
1 week, 2 week, 3? Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So each of those is 1 week because we've been running this tracker weekly. But as we saw in the video, we can also roll it up into larger chunks, right? So say you have this data, you have fresh data every week for, let's say 12 weeks, right? You could roll it up and look at it on a monthly basis instead of looking at it in a more granular manner. So it's really up to you. We can set up the dashboards and the visuals in any way that you'd like.
Great. And obviously one interesting thing, I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but, with Coinbase going public, it'd be interesting to see that week, after it. I mean, I had multiple people call me and saying, hey, what is this? And why should I be looking at it? And blah, blah, blah. So, I think what you guys are doing with this industry tracker is great because you're going to be able to kind of keep tracking it. And, I guess one question I had is like, how instantaneous is this data? Are you running it like today? Would I be seeing it next week, or how fast could I get access to kind of some of the turnarounds?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it is literally instantaneous. So we can work with you to figure out how often you'd like to measure this. So let's say, it's an industry or a sector that's a little more sensitive to market changes, for example, right? In that case, you may want to measure the data more frequently, run a tracker daily or every other day or weekly and see the data coming in as soon as people respond to the survey. In other cases, you may want to say, hey, this is a little more of a passive space. We'd like to look at it, but it's not something we're actively interested in. But just want to make sure that we don't miss out on any opportunities that arise. In that case, you may want to look at something monthly or even quarterly, right? And we can run the surveys as often as you'd like us to, depending on on those needs, but the data really does come in right away. So yeah, just moving forward, I think the Coinbase example was definitely super relevant and topical just because they IPO'd recently. But I think another interesting insight that I thought surfaced from this tracker was, even though we can see about 60% of retail investors were aware of E-Trade and Charles Schwab, only 6 to 7% use them, which means, they're probably not doing a great job of converting their recognition to actual usage, especially when compared to things like Coinbase, as you can see on this chart here, or even public.com, which despite having much lower awareness, are able to do a much better job of converting to usage, right? And as these companies grow, they could become an even bigger threat to some of the more established legacy players like a Charles Schwab, for example. So again, this is all within the context of who's Charles Schwab targeting versus Coinbase. It could be totally different kind of user, and it might be okay. But it's just an interesting angle to look at this kind of data from. But yeah, so, with any tracker, you want to go a little deeper, right? You want to see what happens next. So in this case, we took it a little further, and we started comparing retail investor perceptions as well as expected future interest across all of these investment apps and companies, right? So in this case, on these charts, we're seeing Coinbase and Robinhood specifically. But you can see over time, so over the first 4 waves of the tracker in the chart on the left, Robinhood, which is the gray line, has really started to close the gap with Coinbase in terms of positive impressions that people have of both of these companies. And this also has translated to an improvement in investors saying they would consider investing using Robinhood in the future. So that's the chart on the right, where you can see, again, Robinhood has started to close the gap with Coinbase. So it's interesting to see that actual positive impressions has translated into likely usage in the future as well. And then, again, one more thing that we can look at is we can start to slice and dice the data depending on whatever you'd like to see. So in this case, for each of these companies, we wanted to try and understand who's using each of these, right? So we decided to cut the data demographically. And what we're seeing here is that this is probably not as surprising, but Coinbase and Robinhood users skew a lot younger than E-Trade users or Charles Schwab or Morgan Stanley. But between Coinbase and Robinhood, we see that Coinbase users tend to have a lower income than Robinhood users, which is interesting. But the point I'm really trying to make is that our tracker gives you the ability to look at data among these specific demographic groups or even groups of interest that you might have, right? Which means that you can get as granular as you'd like to truly get those insights among the people that are most relevant to the kind of decisions you're looking to make. So super interesting, the kind of granularity you can get and just how real time this information is. Hopefully you kind of see that too.
Yeah, and I think this is actually an interesting data set, because one of the things we have seen, Coinbase just went public. So, there's not a lot of history that a lot of people can look back in, to look at, to say, okay, how did they do last quarter, the quarter before, the quarter before? So using survey data, I do think is one that it's probably a great area, especially around companies going public and just what the trends are happening, to give you some insight. So yeah, this is great. Thanks for showing it to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I can, what I'd like to do, we had a couple questions come in from the audience. So, the first one was around, what sectors do you see the most traction with from, the survey category? Is it consumer? Is it retail? Is it biotech with drugs? Is it, are there any kind of go-to sectors that you guys have seen people leverage or, come in towards first?
Yeah, David, do you want to take that?
Yeah, and Tim, you hit on some of the bigger ones that we see from a lot of the investment community, really any consumer-driven industry. So it's a pure consumer tech companies, but we also wouldn't discount our capabilities as it relates to the B2B side of things. So we work with a lot of enterprise software investors, and a common use case we see from those investors is they want to target, let's say, IT decision makers at firms of a certain size, because we've got that profiling and because we've got relationships with specialty B2B panels. We have the ability to not only just tap into our consumer respondents, but also those B2B professionals, whether those be those IT decision makers or doctors or lawyers, a lot of different use cases when you think of our consumer and B2B panels.
And then I guess another question, do you guys ever work with customers to blend or combine data sets, i.e. Credit card, email, or sentiment data sets? Question.
Yeah, I think we work closely with a lot of investors when they recognize that they're not getting the level of granularity they need with those other alternative data sources. So, my background, I was working at a point of sale data company prior to this, and, very actionable data, very valuable data. But a lot of times where you pick up a trend happening in a particular quantitative data set, you don't always have a lot of context as to why those trends are happening. And so survey data, really inherent in our data that we are able to generate, is the ability to bring context around those trends and do so on a forward-looking basis. So I'd say in pretty much every conversation that we have with investors, they're most likely using our platform and marrying it with those other data sets to kind of round out the picture and give them that holistic look at what's going on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. It's like, it sounds like they come to you for the why, so if you're picking up something, or if they have an email receipt provider and they notice that Home Depot is spiking right after COVID, one of the things that would make sense to me is they'd come to you guys and say, okay, why is everyone buying lumber? Why are people doing this? And if your surveys are kind of like, look, I'm at home more and I'm going to use my discretionary income to fix up my house to make it nicer, great. That makes sense. So I can see that being very valuable. But I guess, kind of as we're wrapping up here, what are the takeaways that you want the audience to walk away with? What are some of the things that, you guys you see it from the inside, you see the power of, SurveyMonkey's, this new tracking product. So, if you want, take us through some of those of what are some of the insights.
Yeah, Tim, and that's actually a great lead into our next slide. And as we wrap this up a little bit, I think the point we want to get across here is that the investors that we work with are really recognizing that there's a lot of value of survey data and this industry tracker that we just showcased here today at every step and every stage of the investment process. So having this data coming in on a regular cadence, giving you insight into industries and names where you might have a lot of exposure, can obviously be critical in the due diligence phase of your investments, but also in the idea generation phase of your investment process. Just taking another example, when you look at the private equity or venture capital community, they might be pitching a new company and they want to really differentiate themselves, showing that they aren't just the generic source of capital, and they can use proprietary survey data through our platform to tell that executive team something about their company and something about their brand that they might not already know. And so really building that credibility in those pitches and in those meetings. Obviously on the deep due diligence efforts, all data, whether that be credit card data or transactional data, geolocation data, all data, including survey data, can be instrumental in understanding the total landscape of that name or that particular industry in which you're about to take a huge investment in. And then lastly, on the post-investment side, how are you monitoring your investments and understanding the competitive landscape? Market share gains of new entrants, brand awareness shifts. We saw a lot of that with the example that Divya showed. But basically just every dynamic going on in that industry, how are you tracking that? Survey data can be a key resource in that regard. So hopefully you got a sense of that, saw the value of having that data coming in on a regular cadence, whether that's on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And most importantly, with the industry tracker, having our AI solution surface some of those meaningful insights like the demographic shifts and that sort of thing. So you just flip over to the next slide, just kind of round this out. I know we talked a lot about our industry tracker here, but I led off the webinar by stating that we've really moved up market over the last 3 or 4 years and build a solution specifically for the enterprise. And that's true of our rollout of our professional services, but also our software and technological capabilities like we showcased here today. And you can see the holistic solution that we're now offering on the slide here. And this is not only in the investment community, those CPG and tech and healthcare and all those companies and their marketing and consumer insights divisions that need survey data and they need forward-looking insights to help guide their strategy and their product development. But as it relates to the investment community and the unique solutions we're offering today and going forward, obviously we saw the new industry tracker, but look at the conjoint capabilities that we have, keeping track of product optimization, max diff, feature importance, Van Westendorp, price sensitivity. So these are all unique offerings that we've either rolled out or will be rolling out in the coming months. It's really going to give you some unique data points that is proprietary to your firm and can be leveraged in your investment process.
Great. And I know you guys have an event coming up. Give us a little hint in terms of what's coming for that. And if the audience, I know we have a lot of analysts, PMs, a lot of market researchers. So if they're welcome, we'd love to, get them involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're holding our first virtual market research event. It's called Fast Forward Live on June 10th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. We've got a whole lineup. If you flip over to the next slide, I just want to call out a couple of the speakers that we're going to have on the schedule. We're going to have Aileen Lee from Cowboy Ventures, the founder of Cowboy Ventures, and Brad Gerstner, founder of Altimeter, getting up on stage, our virtual stage with our CEO, Xander Lurie, just talking about the value of survey data and more broadly, the value of alternative data in the investment process. We're also going to have our Chief Research Officer up on stage with our Chief Research Officer, John Cohen, with an economist by the name of Jason Shanker. He's the chairman of the Futurist Institute, just talking more global macro in regards to using survey data. So fantastic event. If you see here on the next slide, we're going to be, you can see how to get in touch with us if there is interest in learning a little bit more about that event, or just generally just sitting down and having a one-on-one conversation with Divya or myself. Feel free to reach us via the BattleFin Connect app, and we can line up a one-on-one meeting there. So that's it from our end. On behalf of SurveyMonkey, on behalf of Divya, I just want to thank BattleFin and thank everyone in attendance today. Appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll be speaking with you soon.
Great. And that's a wrap. Thanks everyone for joining us. Reach out as always, click on the buttons on the screen if you want to set up a meeting or email them directly. Thank you for your time. Awesome product. Highly encourage you guys to reach out, get a demo, really find some insights and leverage not only alternative data sets you may already be purchasing, but take it to the next level, figure out the why. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.